Hey Chris, do you have any tips on how I can change my mindset and worry less about belts and stripes and contain my own ego? Recently, there was a promotion at my gym where people who show up less than I do and who I feel have less skill than me, based on roles and drilling, got promoted ahead of me, and it's really left me confused. I do understand belts and stripes don't really matter, but I'm a sentimental type of person, and receiving stripes and belts for some reason means a lot to me. Well, if you stick around to the end of the video, I'll have more thoughts on that. Any advice to offer? I train 9 hours a week consistently and am always training and learning new things and actively rolling and drilling and working on the things we teach in class. I'm trying hard to focus and getting better and to not worry about the belts and stripes, but it's always in the back of my mind, and I correlate it with levels of skill. Anything helps. Thank you. So, I do have some answers for this. First, I want to share my story about how I learned to not care about belts. Then I'm going to give my top 3 tips for how you can kill your ego and stop worrying so much about the belts and the stripes. I went from a 3-stripe white belt to a 0-stripe white belt. That was the most fun time in my training history ever. I started training at a gym that was close to where I lived at, and I'm not going to name it, but it was one of those gyms that charged for belt promotions. And I'm almost embarrassed to say, but I did end up paying for 2 or 3, I don't remember, of those belt promotions. And the benefit was pretty obvious. First of all, when I got 2 stripes, I was able to go to more classes, even though I had to pay them more money. But I could still go to the advanced classes now that I was striped up, I suppose. On top of that, I did feel pride every single time I got a stripe. It's very natural to want to have a symbol to show off your hard work. And if you stay following the channel, support by subscribing down below, I'm going to drop a video about why belts do matter and why they are important. During the time I was getting striped up, I also trained at a judo academy. This academy was ran by an instructor who really didn't put any emphasis at all on the belts. The classes were super small, and instead we were focused on just learning something each day to get a little bit better. And it was a really awesome environment because it felt like we were practicing martial arts. At the other gym, it almost felt like I was a product. It was like I had to pay them for these stripes on my belt, and it felt a little dirty. It sort of threw me off from really caring about the belts, and I ended up moving away to college where I trained at the judo club on campus, and essentially it was a ragtag team of students. We got together, we would beat each other up. Some of us had done jiu-jitsu, some of us had done judo, some of us had done both, and some of us had done none of that. But it didn't matter. 3 times a week we all got together in the wrestling room, we tried to toss each other around, and we had a great time. Honestly, I have really fond memories from the judo club, and I did get way better practicing then. Fast forward a whole 2 semesters in, and summer hits. There's no judo club, and I do want to train. This is where I run into my current Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu instructor. And I'm a little confused at what to do at this point because I had a 3-stripe white belt, and I'm sure if I walked in and was like, hey, can I keep my 3 stripes, please? Maybe he would have said yes, maybe he would have said no. But for me, I had been away from Jiu-Jitsu for about a whole year, and I just felt more comfortable starting fresh with this new instructor. And this was one of the best decisions I ever made. Because obviously I, informed my instructor that I had some previous grappling experience, but so do high school wrestlers. That doesn't mean they show up with a bunch of different stripes. And that was so cool because I was a 0-stripe white belt and there was no expectations, which leads me into the first tip for not caring about the belts and reducing your ego. That is, understand why each belt type has its pros and its cons. When you're a white belt, there is absolutely zero pressure whatsoever to know anything at all. There is a huge range of white belts. On one end of the spectrum, you have the Division I wrestler who has been grappling since they were 4 years old and is able to really put the smash on even experienced blue belts. Maybe a purple belt, depending on how good they are. And on this end of the spectrum, we have someone who has never done an athletic sport in their life. They might be a little bit uncoordinated. They might have some mobility issues. They might be extremely overweight. Whatever the case may be, they're at a very low starting point, and even basic things like warm-ups is going to be a struggle for them. And both of these people start with the same color belt around their waist. But you have no pressure to know anything as a white belt, and instead you can have the most fun each class. One thing I did is I focused on making some friends. I learned the names of a few people in the academy who kept showing up as often as I did, and we would partner up regularly, we would spar regularly, and it was just a great time. Before I knew it, the stripes started coming along. And the reason for that is I was showing up consistently, just like you were. 9 hours a week is a lot of training. I'd be careful about burning out, because 9 hours a week, especially with no recovery, that's going to take up a huge portion of your time, because you can't just train 9 hard hours a week and then ignore your body the rest of the week. You have to take time for extra rest, extra recovery, extra food. But let's say you have all those bases covered and you're training pretty consistently. That's all you can do. So focus on the fun things. Focus on making a friend, making a few friends, just enjoying each class, and I promise you the stripes will come. You just have to be patient. But while you're at white belt, enjoy being a white belt. Enjoy the lack of pressure. Feel free to ask questions. Feel free to ask dumb questions. Try not to ask dumb questions, but if you do, don't feel embarrassed. Everybody expects the white belt not to know what's going on. Use this to your advantage. Learn as much as you can. Be as open-minded as you possibly can. Truly, something that black belts say is keep a white belt mentality. And what that means is keep an open mind and try to learn the techniques as if you had never seen them before, and just overall get one good thing out of each class. As a blue belt, I'd be lying if I said there weren't perks. You get some instant respect. When that color changes on your belt, people are going to respect you a little bit more instantly. You walk into the gym, you see someone has a blue belt, you think, okay, this person has been here for a while, but with this comes some added pressure. Sure, people might trust you to show them a few details, but there are blue belts who don't know correct details and they'll coach someone on a wrong thing. Watch out for that. On top of this, there might be a little bit more pressure to perform now. Some of the upper belts are going to take the gloves off and they're really going to beat the brakes off you. And if you're not ready for that, better watch out. But understand that as a blue belt too, you don't have the expectations that come with the next rank, purple belt, because it is still a beginning belt. You don't have to perform at the same level. It's still okay to ask dumb questions. You're just a blue belt after all. Don't worry so much about if you deserve it or not. It's basically a white belt 2.0, except people know you're not a complete newbie. So that's the perk of a blue belt. As a purple belt, I'm a purple belt right now, and I absolutely love it. First of all, you get a way more respect when you're a purple belt. That's the thing that belts really give for people, is a way to, as you mentioned in your comment, you sort of correlate it with skill. And that's what a lot of people do. It's a pretty good analogy for someone's skill. But just like there were all these spectrums for people on the white belt, it's the same with every single belt. So it only covers 2 inches of your lapels. You got to cover the rest of your ass. Especially when this comes to purple belt, people really expect you to know what you're doing at this point. If you don't have a solid understanding of, let's just say leg locks, that's a really common thing that people don't know. You need to get that figured out. As a purple belt, you should have a very complete game. When I got my purple belt, it was really, really awesome that it correlated with a summer time where I could dive super far into training, because I was able to flesh out chunks of my game that weren't as developed as they should have been, and I was able to be much more well-rounded. I developed a few razor-sharp weapons, and I really feel like I grew into the belt. But if you don't know some concepts at purple belt, you got to get it together. There is a serious expectation to perform. You will be in expert divisions. When you are a purple belt, if you go to a no-gi tournament, expect to grapple a black belt. This happens. Moving on to brown belt, this isn't something I have, but I could speculate a little bit. Obviously, it's probably a little bit more respect. That's, as you go up in belts, that's usually what happens. You're not a full black belt yet, so you don't have to deal with all the responsibilities that come with that. You have to start making a decision about what you want to do. But you also don't have some of the cool things that a black belt has. If you're a black belt, I feel like you should have figured it out at this point. But that's my summation about the pros and cons of each belt, and tip number 1. Tip number 2, try to give everyone their day in the sun. Everyone's journey is their own journey. And as I said to my kids in the kids class, The belts are only meaningful for the hard work that you put in. If some random stranger came up to you and said, "Hey man, here's a fancy colored belt, and look at this, I'm putting 7 stripes on it, just for you, here you go," you would look at him and be like, "Dude, what are you doing? That's really weird." And also you wouldn't care. But if you spent hours and hours and hours putting blood, sweat, and tears into the mat, getting better, honing your skills, becoming a better person, when you get stripes and belts, that's a representation of that. And if you didn't have the hard work and the fond memories to look through, the belt would mean nothing. When someone is getting a stripe, recognize what they're going through. They have put in blood, sweat, tears. Hopefully not a lot of blood or tears, but they put in a lot of hard work that makes the belt meaningful, and feel happy for them. I know sometimes you have the tendency to compare. You're exactly right. That's when your ego is coming out. But instead, do your best to congratulate your teammates because they worked hard for this. And your day will come. When your day comes, you don't want people to think, "Oh man, this guy, I could kind of beat him up. I know I'm a little bit better than him, but he really shouldn't get his stripe." Because here's the thing. Everybody's on a spectrum. And if you are more of the competitor type, your coach is going to see that and expect more of you when it comes to being able to physically perform than if you're someone on this end. However, you can still progress no matter where you start from. It's your own journey. Everybody starts at their own place and everybody finishes at their own place. A purple belt is not the same as a purple belt. When it comes time for you to get promoted, you'll feel much happier if your teammates are encouraging you and feeling happy for you genuinely. So try to feel happy for them and understand the journey that they went through. And that is what makes it meaningful, not necessarily the respect that they get or the fun little fancy pros you get from having a belt. Since you made it to the end of the video, I say the third and best tip for last. Become an upper belt hunter. This was something that I did when I was a white belt, and I don't feel bad about it at all. One of the things that I did was I tried to stop caring about the belt around someone's waist and instead decided to test every single person with every single roll. That would mean if I went against a blue belt, well, I'm only a white belt, but let's see if I can make a submission work. In fact, the day I got my 3rd stripe, I distinctly remember rolling with a blue belt. I tapped him out with an armbar. This was something that happened. I mean, I had a lot of experience at that point, and he turned it up. But I was ready for it, and in fact, that was something I enjoy, and I thought it was fun. So if an upper belt gets tapped by a lower belt, oftentimes they're like, "Oh no, I'm going to get one back on him." So if you're able to hunt down an upper belt and surprise them with a good submission, and then expect them to bring it back 3 times as hard, but have fun with it, enjoy it. That means they respect you if they're going to go out there and put that extra work and that extra energy into trying to take you out. It's a challenge, and it's a lot of fun. So when your coach sees you tapping out all his upper belts, I'm not going to lie, he's probably going to think about giving you some tape. But that's not why you're doing it. You're doing it for the growth and the learning experience. And if you want to pat your ego a little bit, it's fun to tap out an upper belt. He shouldn't have been caught slipping. So don't worry about the belt on their waist, and instead worry about what they can bring to the mat. Something that helps is no-gi classes, especially if people don't wear ranked rash guards. Makes it so much easier. Just go out there and you might surprise yourself who you're able to tap if you show up and don't really care, other than seeing, can you take me or can I take you? I've got a 4th bonus tip for how to reduce your ego and stop caring about the belts a little bit. And that would be use your belt desire to your advantage. Now, you have to be extremely strategic when you talk to your coach about this. Do not ask about promotions. But if a promotion is something that's on your mind and you're a little confused, go up and talk to your instructor. He or she is a human. And I wouldn't open with, "Hey, when am I going to get my next stripe or belt?" But it might be a good idea to say, "Hey, what is something you're looking for me to improve upon? What is something you think I should be able to do before I'm ready for the next rank?" I mean, that's not a terrible question. If your coach is a little bit about promotions, and you probably shouldn't bring it up, just ask what he's looking for or she's looking for in general. Obviously, when they're looking for that in general, they're probably, going to stripe you up after that. But use that to your advantage and take that as far as you can. Whatever piece of advice they give you, work really hard on it for a good period of time, which means before class, maybe grab someone to positional spar in that position or drill that move that they showed you. After class, make sure you're sticking around for the little bit of extra work you can put in. That's truly all you can do. But you can use that to your advantage to get much better at jiu-jitsu. Just talk to your coach and see what they're looking for out of you. Caveat: if you're a white belt, your professor might not know your game, straight up. And most white belts just need to work on everything. Sucks to suck, but yeah, if you're not like a high-level white belt or a blue belt, your coach might not know you well enough to say, hey man, this area of your game is something you need to work on. So instead, just focus on basic positions. Focus on understanding guard, how to break close guard, and how to pass open guard, because once you open the guard, you're not passing close guard anymore. Side control, mount, transitions between those two, namely knee on belly, and back mount. If you can understand at least 2 techniques to do from each position, you can spam them. You can go technique 1, technique 2, technique 1, technique 2, technique 1, 1, 1, technique 2, technique 2, technique 2, technique 1. And if you're going back and forth, say for example it's an escape from mount where you're bridging and rolling and then pushing on the knees, bridging, rolling, and pushing on the knees. Truthfully, that's all you need to get really, really good at jiu-jitsu. And if you build that basic positional understanding and awareness, it's going to help you get much, much better. And that's essentially what your coach is looking for if you're a white belt. So don't ask him, just trust me, generally get good at jiu-jitsu. Once you start getting more into the advanced ranks, your coach is going to be able to take some notice, and they might have some more specific things about how your game is not where it should be, and maybe a position or a mindset you can improve upon. So if you made it to the end of the video, it's kind of a long one. Hopefully this helps with you not caring as much about belts. I know I went through that personal journey, and truly, once you get upper ranks in the belts, it's much easier to stop caring, because if you sort of settle into place, you can kind of get into a more familiar rhythm, especially once you get that blue belt, man. You can stop worrying about it. People know that you can kind of grapple, and you could be a world beater blue belt, or you can be one who's just showing up and trying to learn. There's that whole spectrum. Do your best to make it through all the great filters. If you want to check out some more of my videos, if you want to support the channel further, sharing the videos, commenting, subscribing, liking, yada, yada, yada. YouTube stuff down below. Drink kombucha, because good for your tummy. Peace.